My name is Lelia Jackson, and I would like to share with you the beginning of my journey to receiving my Master of Education in Literacy Education. This short video will share with you how I decided to embark on this journey, the things I learned in my Principles of Interdisciplinary Learning and Thinking class, how that class has informed my thinking, and how this new learning will be incorporated. I have been a primary grade teacher for 23 years. I have taught kindergarten for 2 years, a kindergarten first grade multi-age classroom for 4 years, and first grade for 17 years. My greatest joy has been teaching children how to read and developing a love of literature. My greatest sorrow has been watching children struggle with reading. Over the years, I have attended many excellent staff development programs and sessions through the school district in which I teach, and some staff development courses through Region 20 Service Center. After 23 years, I began to see and hear much of the same thing repeated over and over, sometimes with a new name and packaging, but essentially the same thing. My teaching practice eventually stopped improving. Oh, I taught new things and changed, added, deleted certain activities, but the final results were the same. Every year, almost all of my students became successful readers, but there was always one that continued to struggle. Every year I worried over what I could have done differently to help that student. I understood that for me to do better, I had to know better. I knew the resources around me were exhausted. I wanted to re-inspire and re-educate myself to become a better teacher. I wanted to have the fresh from college first-year teacher enthusiasm and education married with 23 years of teaching experience. But going back to school was scary. One of the classes that I enrolled in was Principles of Interdisciplinary Learning and Thinking. This class explored the socio-political aspects of education and learning theories, neither of which I had ever spent much time considering. I had been intent on my classroom, my students, and teaching what I had to teach. I never looked up and saw myself in any big picture. I didn't know I should. Not one staff development, faculty meeting, or district program discussed any of this. I realized that I was beginning to fill in those missing pieces I was looking for. The school district I worked in collaborated with the University of Texas at San Antonio to start a cohort group of teachers with the same learning goal I had. I knew that this was the program for me. I knew that although I had not met my future classmates, I knew I had worked alongside them for years. I felt like I would not be alone in my journey. I enrolled. The journey officially began. So, what is the socio-political nature of education, and why is it so important? Good question. Current social trends often fuel legislation. The education system in America has been formed by legislation that often marginalized certain populations, such as African Americans. There is current legislation that may impact other minority populations, such as the LGBTQ community. There has been unequal funding to certain populations. These factors have created educationally marginalized populations. Marginalizing populations creates education gaps and has created disparities in the educational system. Ladson-Billings suggests that if we restore educational equity to all marginalized populations, then those educational gaps would close. But education is where we all should be the same. Every child in every classroom, in every city and town, and in every state should receive an equitable education. Social justice works to help close those education gaps and restore equality to education. At the core of the socio-political nature of education is the responsibility teachers have to foster and advocate for social justice. There's a foundational understanding that it is right and just for all students to have equitable education and equitable access to excellent teachers, materials, and other resources, regardless of their color of the skin, the amount of money they have, their native language, their gender, or where they live. Teachers have a responsibility to advocate for their students, community, and the greater society for legislative changes that promote social justice. Teachers have a responsibility to help others fight injustice by helping them become aware of injustice around them and providing support to help them become advocates for social justice. The underserved and marginalized populations should have equitable education and opportunities. No child should be left behind should apply to equitable education, not test scores. Once we understand the educational history, the educational gaps, and social justice issues, we must use these to address what we do in our classrooms. We must reform our teaching and learning practice. Learning theories provide us insight into how people learn and then how we should teach. Piaget provides us an understanding of the developmental processes in young children and how that relates to what and how they can learn at different ages. Piaget's developmental theory has produced developmentally appropriate practices in kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. Skinner provides insight into operant conditioning. Skinner's work is highly referenced in classroom behavior management programs. There is a special education population of children with emotional disorders or other disorders that cause behaviors that interfere with classroom participation. Skinner's theory is utilized through token economy systems, behavior contracts, and reward systems for positive behaviors in regular education classrooms, as well as classrooms that address this special population. Vygotsky's concept of the zone of proximal development is evident in the use of learning goals. Many teachers in elementary classrooms test their students for their current instructional reading level. The teacher then creates a reading goal for the students. This is the form of the zone of proximal development. The teacher will teach within that zone until the student masters the established reading goal. Then the teacher will often raise the reading goal, thus creating another zone of proximal development. Vygotsky's theory puts forth the idea that learning pushes forward developmental processes. Constructionism is a learning theory from Poppert and Harrell. Constructionists believe in building meaning and that knowledge is a unified understanding of many concepts which can be visualized in an artifact. Students learn through experiencing. Constructionism is evident in many classrooms as project-driven instruction. At my school, constructionism is highly utilized by the gifted and talented students in their weekly gifted and talented pull-out classroom. Situated learning is seen at my school through things like the outside garden and science lab. Many times, situated learning is the premise for the use of hands-on materials. People are as diverse as the theories. It is the wonder and the beauty of humanity. There is a learning theory that will help a teacher plan their teaching and a student's learning, no matter what or whom they are teaching. There is some commonality in mankind as well, and these theories put forth generalizable truths about learning for all. If we can understand multiple theories, we are in a better position to ensure that we meet the needs of every learner. Students of all diverse learner populations have a fundamental right to a free and equitable education. According to Prinsky, the world has increased technology usage, and children come to school as digital natives. Teachers must be aware of these needs and provide students the learning environment that supports their funds of knowledge and integrates those skills into the classroom. Once we establish the best practices for teaching and learning, we can use them in our classroom, creating a socially just, equitable, and effective learning and teaching environment for all students. This class opened my eyes to the educational system around me and how concepts of learning theories are part of quality instruction. My hope is to create activities and a classroom environment that addresses the development of diverse learners and provides them opportunities to create learning artifacts in a safe, dynamic classroom. I want to create a classroom that promotes diversity, dialogue, and critical thinking. My journey is not over. I am not sure my journey will ever end. But what I do know is I am here to make a difference. I am here to make a change, and I am here to do all I can to create a fair, equitable, just, and dynamic learning and teaching environment for me and my students. This part of my journey has reignited my passion for teaching and reminded me of the power of teaching and learning.